Calm, focus, happiness.
Hey, Mindful Tribe, welcome to the show. We're going to be talking about a gentleman who set out on a journey of self-discovery back in 1979, and it was a planned 4-month tour that was going to be a 10,000-mile motorcycle trip. He was riding a 1977 Moto Guzzi Le Mans motorcycle. Don't know if you know what that is, but it's a pretty cool motorcycle. And now he's written a book called Going the Wrong Way. And get a load of this. This book has been on sale for a while and it's had over 300 5-star reviews. So this is pretty interesting. It's going to be fascinating learning about this story. I'm with Chris Donaldson today. Chris, are you in mindfulness mode today?
I hope so, Bruce. I hope so.
What does mindfulness mean to you, Chris?
I suppose it means living to the day, making the best out of each day as it comes. The book sort of talks about life being as a journey. And very often a journey, you make a journey, your destination's all important. And I think a lot of people are always planning ahead, thinking what they're going to do tomorrow, what's ahead, and what's the focus ahead. Whereas they miss what's happening in the day-to-day life, whatever's going on now. Don't
Chris,
realize
how old were you back in 1977 when you set out, or 79 when you set out on this trip?
Yeah, I was sweet 21. I thought I knew
21.
everything. I thought I was indestructible.
Wow. And then you set off on this trip. And what was it like? What was that experience like when you first set off?
Well, I grew up in Belfast in the 70s, and it wasn't probably the best environment for a kid to grow up. There was bombs going off and people getting shot and so on.
Yeah.
Not that we really minded too much because being kids, we didn't really know anything better. But it's sort of, when I got to my teenage years and decided I wanted to get out, get to Australia, see a bit of the world. So I left in October 79 and I didn't get very far. I got to London and the Ayatollah Khomeini decided to take over the American embassy in Tehran, and the revolution basically closed all roads east to Australia. So I didn't want to go home after 2 weeks after leaving home to go to telling all my friends I was going to Australia. I didn't want to come back in 2 weeks later and giving up.
Right.
So I decided to go to Africa instead.
Okay.
And went down through Europe, down to Athens, to Greece, and across to Israel, back to Cyprus, around Syria, Jordan, around the Middle East, and from Egypt, across the Sahara, down to South Africa.
So what was it like crossing the Sahara Desert on a motorcycle?
It was pretty grim. My motorcycle was a road bike. Basically, it's built for sort of freeways and motorways and going fast, whereas adventure bikes I have now are made for crossing deserts and stuff. Are nothing like my bike, so it was hard going. But I made it after. It took me about a week to get across.
Oh, did you? What were the roads like on the Sahara Desert?
Well, there isn't any road. Well, there wasn't any road then.
So you were literally driving on sand then?
Yeah. I mean, someday, I think a worst day we did 10 miles.
Oh, wow. On a road bike.
Pushing on a road bike. So it was, I was traveling in a convoy with a couple of other vans and cars and a Land Rover. But it was pretty exciting at the time. It was it was very much a matter of thinking if you tried to think of crossing the desert in one go, it would have been just too much to comprehend.
Yeah.
So the only way I could cope with the actual day-to-day desert crossing was to think of every half hour. Okay. Not every day, just every half hour. If I keep the bike on the road, keep the bike upright for the next half hour, and then think about what happens after that and what happens after that. And eventually all the half hours built up to a week getting across the desert. So that's probably then I first sort of realized that you should stop planning too much about the future and worrying about the past, and think about what's happening now, the here and now.
Right. So when you set off, did you have a reserve of cash? Did you have money for gasoline and food and everything you needed?
Well, I had about £1,000, I remember, because it was a sort of your traveler's checks in those days, no credit cards.
Yeah.
Which is probably about 5,000 quid, no, about $7,000 US. So it wasn't an awful lot. It was enough to keep me going, but not an awful lot. It was enough to keep me going for 4 months. But that was if I was going to Australia. Of course, because I didn't go to Australia, I ended up on the road for 1.5 years.
Okay.
So it's been pretty spendthrift.
Yeah.
Thrifty with my money. after South Africa, I got a job in a yacht, a racing yacht, and sailed back to Europe in a yacht race, and the sponsors shipped the bike to the States.
Yeah.
So then I drove from LA up to Vancouver and across Canada to Ottawa,
Okay.
and decided
Did you go to the East Coast as well?
I went down to, I didn't actually see the East Coast until I got to Florida. I went down through, still worked in North Carolina for a couple of months, got some more cash, and then decided to go to South America.
Okay.
So I ended up got through Central America without too much of a problem, but in South America, everything, the wheels fell off more, so to speak. The bike started breaking down, and I got hepatitis, I ran out of money, and everything sort of started going wrong. But I got some cash sent over and got back to ended up in Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the name of the book called Going the Wrong Way. I started off tried to get to Australia and ended up in Argentina. So you can't get much more wrong than that, you know.
Yeah, that's pretty wrong. Yeah.
But it was only after I made the trip really I realized that going the wrong way was actually made the trip what it was. It was 20 times the trip I was ever have been just driving across to Australia.
Yeah, that's a pretty incredible trip that you had, that and you have a way of telling about it in the book that has really grabbed people's attention. Have you always been an amazing storyteller?
Not at all. I started writing a book when I got home, and somebody beat me to it. A guy called Ted Simon, had written a book about riding around the world a few years before me. Mm-hmm. And I found his book when I got home. So it was like somebody had stolen my story, you know, but he'd obviously done it independently anyway. Mm-hmm. But he wrote a really good book. I thought I'll never be able to compete with that. He was a Sunday Times journalist, and he was very experienced in writing. I was just a student. Mm-hmm. So I put my books away and I put my journals away in 40 years. And then 3 years ago, I decided to get them out and wrote the book. And really, my English teachers at school would have been horrified to think that would have been amazed to think that I'd written a book about anything. It's actually got 1,200 reviews now, 1,200, I think about 1,000 five-star reviews. It's really got an excellent reception.
Wow, that's amazing.
I mean, people say there's a book in everybody, but really, if I can write a book, literally anybody can write a book.
Yeah. And so have you done very much writing over the years?
Not at all. No, the only things I've ever written is checks. Really,
okay.
Put in a diary. But and really, I mean, I couldn't have done it without spell checker.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a big help.
Yeah. So it's no, I did take a couple of online courses and learned a bit about writing just through that. But I think one of the attractions of the book is the rawness of my writing. It's not polished. It's I mean, it's good enough writing, but it's raw. It's told as a 21-year-old. It was interesting for me as a 60-year-old reading my diaries and my notes, my journals from when I was 21 and reflecting on what had happened. And it gave me another layer that I was able to write and reflecting on what I was thinking 40 years ago in those situations. And the postscript, I suppose, the story was that once I wrote the book, one of my friends said, well, you never actually got to Australia. Why not have another go? So a year and a half ago, I still had the same motorcycle. I kept it as a souvenir, if you like. So I spent a bit of money doing it up and headed off just after COVID.
So a year and a half ago, you took off on a trip again.
Yeah. Now I've got a wife and kids and a job, so I work for myself, but I still have a job. I still have to get back. So we did it in 2-week sections. We drove for 2 weeks, parked the bikes up, and came home, went back to work. And then came back after a couple of months, did another couple of thousand miles. So it took 6 different sections to complete the trip. But I finally got to Australia in March this year. 43 years after I set off.
Wow.
Same motorcycle. So the bike's now 45 years old. I'm 64. So the combined age of 109 by the time we got there.
That's pretty incredible.
Some sort of a record.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And so then you got there, and then did you fly back, or what did you do?
Yeah.
And then did you have the motorcycle shipped back?
No, the motorcycle's still in Australia. It's in a museum at the minute, in the Motor Museum in Australia in Melbourne. But I
Oh,
am hoping to get back out later in the year and ship it over to the States and come across the States or Canada and
oh,
sort of complete a circumnavigation with it that way.
oh, great. Maybe we can have a chat. Maybe you could
Yeah, you never
have
like
a
to get back
visit
to
with me.
Ontario. Get back to Ontario.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful state.
Yeah, it
But yeah,
is. It's
so it was
beautiful here.
interesting. I suppose it was fascinating to do exactly the same trip on exactly the same motorcycle 43 years after they set off originally, just to same body, slightly tattier and older and decrepit. But it
Right.
was a bit of a challenge to see if I could still do what I did when I was 21.
Well, very cool. Well, this time you went with a friend, isn't that right? Liam?
Liam, yeah, well, that was a bit of a disaster. We did two trips, two sections together, and then he got for his own reasons decided to give up and he came home,
Okay.
which was a bit of a bummer for me because it was his idea in the first place. He
Oh,
took he talked me into going.
and
So
then
then
he just didn't hang in there.
he didn't hang in there. It was coming up to going across Turkey and Iran, and I think Iran was a bit of a worry too. I can understand it's crossing countries like Iran and Pakistan and India is not for everybody. Um, I've had obviously a lot of experience of it, so it's probably just too much for him to delve into from a cold start.
Yeah, sure. And what kinds
So,
of places did you go to stay overnight? Were they like hostels or hotels? What kinds of accommodation
well,
did you have?
the first time I was away, I was basically camping wherever I could, or staying in doss houses and pretty rough holes,
Right.
as cheapest as I could get. So one advantage I had the second trip was a bit more money, so I could afford to stay in the odd holiday inn or whatever.
Yes.
So anywhere that I could park the bike up safely. But I
Yeah.
camped a few nights as well. One of the weirdest ones was probably when I crossed from Iran into Pakistan. I had to try three different border crossings before I could get out. And third time lucky, they let me out of the country.
Oh, so they wouldn't let you across the border at the other places.
No, first place I said I could only cross as a pedestrian, couldn't
Oh,
take the motorbike. The second place I said I could they could take the motorbike, but not a pedestrian, not a person.
oh,
So it's
that's
just
crazy.
crazy rules, you know. So there's only one crossing in the whole country. There's, I don't know, it's maybe 1,000 mile border. There's only one place I could cross. So as you can imagine, getting out of Iran was quite pleased to finally get out of the country to get my passport
Yeah.
stamped and get across the border.
Yeah.
And a wee man in a Honda 50 picked me up and he said, "Follow me." Drove across a bit of wasteland and straight into this basically a fort, which was
Oh,
a jail.
oh,
So he
really?
said, "Well, you're staying here tonight." So he assured it was for my own good, for my own protection, because there was a sort of terrorist activity in the place, in the area. But it was a bit disconcerting whenever they closed the doors. It slammed the jail doors behind us.
Yeah, I believe it.
There's a couple of
Must have been.
cells, a couple of other cells had various criminals of different categories in them. So myself and a French guy stuck in this room with no furniture, and it worked out well. I mean, the Pakistanis were actually excellent. They actually gave us an armed convoy across the whole country.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I mean, they're over zealously guarding us, really, in effect. I think a couple of people had been kidnapped
Okay.
in recent years, so they were very good, very careful to make sure that we didn't fall foul of any of the bad guys.
I see. So did you continue being a motorcycle driver all through your life, or is this something you only did on these trips?
Um, I've come in and out of biking. I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, and I've done different things. After the motorcycling, I didn't want to see a bike for about 5 years after that, probably, and I
Okay.
parked it in the back of the garage, and then after a while, it got it out again and got into biking again. But I got into flying after that, and then
Oh, you
sailing
did.
after that.
Oh, so
So
you
I've
have your
done,
pilot's license.
yeah. I actually built an airplane
Oh, you
as a
did.
hobby. Yeah, which is one of the other probably the most stupid thing I ever did.
Why is
You can
that? Why is it
imagine.
stupid?
Well, it's much easier to go and buy something. It's like making your own clothes. You know, some things you better just
Y-
buy.
Yeah.
Um, it was plain through all right, but the design was slightly flawed, and
Mhm.
I had problems with the certification of it. The couple of ones in America, an American design, and someone crashed.
I see.
So we decided to give it up after a while. So
So
you're always
you're
safer. Sometimes you're safer going the right way.
And then you said you're also experienced on the ocean as a like sailing. Is that right?
Yes, I sailed back from South Africa, as I said, in a yacht race. We would like the Volvo Ocean race that
Uh-huh.
currently goes around the world. It was like a leg of that,
Mm-hmm.
which is quite strange because the boat had stopped in Cape Town and they were re-provisioning. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the guys hurt his leg when he was ashore. He was an Irish guy, so I got his place. I'd
Oh,
never sailed anything but dinghies before, and suddenly was in the middle of an ocean going out yacht race. So it was a bit of a shock to the system after being a solo motorcyclist to being on a boat with 8 other people night and
yeah,
day
I
in a
bet.
very small enclosed area. So I've had quite a few shocks to the system.
I guess. So when you announced that you were going to go on this motorcycle trip 3 years ago or so, how did your wife and family respond to that?
Well, we were a bit shocked at first, and but my wife's very good. She's always supported my crazy endeavors, and says, "Oh, as long as you're out of goodwill before you go," she was happy enough.
Yeah.
Should have been a bit concerned about that, shouldn't I? So no,
Wow.
she's very supportive, and I mean the great thing about now compared to 40 years ago, 40 years ago, I think I've phoned home every 3 months. Maybe my parents would have heard from me because it was in the third world. It was so hard. You had to book a telephone call in the post office in
Sure.
the capital city, and I think remember it cost me £5 in Cairo to phone home for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
which is really not really worth the bother at all. You know, and that's like
Right.
$30 nowadays. Whereas now you could take your mobile phone, you could phone home on WhatsApp free anywhere in the world practically.
Yes.
The internet connection,
Big
so you can phone
change.
home every day. So it's a huge. The internet's one of the biggest differences that I find in every walk of life right across the
Yeah.
world.
Sure is a huge difference. Yeah, absolutely. And then you got this book published. And how did you feel when you started getting these amazing reviews?
I was quite shocked, to be honest, because as I say, I never had any aspirations to be a writer.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to put the story down really for my family and for family and friends, if nothing else. But
Right.
so I was amazed that some reviews are quite touching. One guy actually wrote to me from a hospital because his son was having spinal surgery and he was in a lot
Uh-huh.
of pain. And I found that by reading chapters of my book to him, he was able to see the hardships that I'd been put under and had to undergo and got through. And he actually said it gave his son great hope and helped him get through his ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite touching to have that sort of review to come back for us. You've actually done some good like that, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, your website is chrisdonaldson.world. Chris, Chris, Donaldson, Donaldson.world. So Mindful Tribe, check out the website, check out the book. Like I said, the book is called Going the Wrong Way. And it's certainly a well-loved book. So Chris, I want to just shift the direction a little bit of the interview. I've worked in bullying prevention for a long time, and I know you have lots of different stories, but do you have a story about bullying, some type of bullying story where mindfulness would have made a difference?
Well, I think probably the main one I could think of. I'm back in Belfast now. I lived in Dubai for 8 years and came back 3 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Irish politics Northern Ireland politics is one thing we could really take a lesson out of mindfulness because we're just politicians are just buried in the past. They're always fighting with each other and they can't get over um they can't get over the past. They can't look at each other and think this is what's happening today.
Yeah.
Your president was over last week, the 25th anniversary of the peace agreement,
Mm-hmm.
and it's quite shocking that our own guys here are still arguing with each other, and can't move on mentally, physically, for the betterment of the country. They're both trying to, each side tries to bully each other without thinking if they could come together, move together, would be the benefit of everybody. The previous leaders have both died now, Ian Paisley and Martin McGuinness. ironically would have been arch enemies in the 70s and 80s. One was leader of the Protestant forces, and the other was the leader of the IRA, allegedly.
Yes.
And they ended up great friends. You know, it was quite ironic to see them. They were seeing on TV, joking with each other and having a laugh. You know, they were able to get over the mental barrier that stopped them moving ahead. So it is possible, but ironically, the newer people who didn't go through the troubles quite so much as they did haven't been able to move forward like that and develop a new relationship. I don't know if that fits your topic.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. I want to also talk to you about the diagnosis that you've had, a diagnosis of Parkinson's. When did that happen, and what led up to that to make you go for the tests?
Well, I just felt there's something, a bit of uneasiness in my left hand. It was about 5 years ago. And Parkinson's is a very difficult disease to diagnose, apparently. So it took a while for them to work out it probably is Parkinson's.
Right.
But I've been very lucky that it's been quite mild and aggressive. That's the word. Not aggressive.
Right, sure.
It's pretty much seems to be quite dormant at the minute, that's right. But one of the reasons I suppose I wanted to do the trip to Australia 3 years ago was to challenge myself.
Right.
I'm the sort of idiot that says if somebody puts a barrier up in front of me, I just want to charge through it.
Yeah.
Rather than give up. So I thought I'll give myself a challenge to see if I can ride a motorbike to Australia with the Parkinson's. And I'd actually find it was quite it was quite not easy, but it didn't give me a hard time, because when you're riding a motorbike, it's nearly a meditation at times, because you're focused on one thing, which is riding a motorbike. What's ahead, what's behind you. So you're in a zone of your own,
right.
And it's actually can be quite relaxing after a while. You become one with the bike, and you're just there. You're able to think about what's going on today rather than tomorrow, and relax. So it was quite a. It wasn't as difficult as I thought it could have been.
Yeah. So have you been a person who's meditated over the years? Has meditation been part of your life?
Not particularly. Not particularly, I suppose, in the traditional sense of the word, but I do think flying or playing golf even, or driving motorbikes, you're cutting yourself off from other people. You're concentrating on one thing, and I think that is a form of meditation, that you can then, your mind can relax and think about what else, think about yourself and what's going on, and come to new ideas and reflections.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, as we move forward in the interview, Chris, I want to ask you 5 quick answer questions. So just 30-second answers are perfect. First one is this: who's one person who has been a powerful mindfulness influence in your life?
Probably my wife, Julie, has been the most helpful to me in that way, because I would in the past in business, I've always been planning ahead, thinking what's happening in the future and worrying about what happened in the past and so on. Where she's brought me to enjoy the moment today and what's happening now, and given me the space to do crazy things like ride around the world on a motorbike.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That really is awesome. Well, tell me this: how has mindfulness affected how you deal with your emotions?
I think by controlling myself and, as I say, doing things on my own, by like motorcycling or swimming or whatever, by sport, doing physical exercises on my mental exercise on my own, I've been able to control, to get away from outside influences. I find that's very beneficial to me, because I'm very easily distracted by what's going on around me. So that's probably the way I've been able to control my emotions, and then use the time to come to decisions and assess what's going on like that.
Sure. Let's talk about breathing. Do you have any comments or any tips about doing breathing that really can help you with mindfulness?
No.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's
Yeah,
a
that's okay.
2-second answer.
That's the short answer.
That's the short answer. Yeah, but I'm here for you to tell me that one.
Yeah, no problem at all. Well, Chris, your book is something, it's a book I really recommend. It's really amazing how people love this book and your storytelling and just
Thanks very much.
just it's so exciting how you've been able to put this all into this book going the wrong way. Yeah. So, but are there any other books that you would recommend that are somehow related to mindfulness?
Probably motorbike themes and the art of motorcycle maintenance would be my favorite. It's obviously been around for a while, but it's as fresh today as it's ever been, I think. Have you read it?
I have not read it, no.
No, it's a great book. It starts off as a travel. It starts with motorcycling and it works through Zen, whereas then influences and lifestyles and thought processes. I haven't read it for a while. Now that you mention it, I must take it out again and go through it again.
Take it out.
Yeah.
Check it out again. Are there any apps that you recommend or any apps that you ever use to kind of stay organized, stay focused, stay centered?
Well, that's a bit of a funny one too, because I used to make apps. I worked in Dubai as a app developer for 5 or 6 years until 3, 4 years ago in another life. But I don't really, as somebody I've worked with them, I don't really have a great deal of time for them anymore because screen time is, you do enough screen time with work and writing and whatever. An app, I think you got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Rather
I hear you.
ask your phone to do it, I think we spend too much time on our phones as it is.
I think that's true. Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks for answering those 5 questions. And as I was interviewing you, I was going to ask you, what was your career? Or did you have a number of careers? You've now told us that you were an app creator, but what else did you do in your life?
Well, the family business was retail furniture, selling furniture. So I started off with that and I developed a business into a property company. And then we got into fitness, sort of workout franchise. So it was very varied, and then I went into mobile apps. But a very varied career. I've probably doesn't say much about me that I can't concentrate on one thing for too long. I enjoy doing different things. I enjoy learning different techniques and different skills, I suppose. So it's been enjoyable learning how to do different skills. So as I said, it's been quite a varied career path.
Right.
I've gone around full circle now, back into property again.
Nice. Well, Chris, it's been really exciting to talk to you. And Mindful Tribe, the website is chrisdonaldson.world. So check it out. And Chris, thanks so much.
Just to put in, probably Amazon's probably the best bet for guys on your side of the pond.
Yeah.
It's an ebook and audiobook and paperback there. So sorry to put in.
No problem. Yeah. So check out the book on Amazon, Going the Wrong Way by Chris Donaldson. And Chris, do you have any final words of advice before we say goodbye?
Just live for today. Life's a journey, and enjoy the day-to-day journey as you go through it, because the destinations, we all know where that is.
Yeah.
So live for today.
Good advice. Chris, so great to meet you, and thanks for being on Mindfulness Mode.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, Bruce.
All the best. Bye now.
Bye.